This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Men, women, sales, it's all a hot mess, but we have someone here who's going to straighten it out once and for all. The awesome and amazing Judy Hoberman.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I hope I can definitely get some of those things in those buckets for you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so we've got to talk about selling in a skirt and walking the glass floor and all of the above. Let's start with selling in a skirt, sellinginaskirt.com.
Mm-hmm.
How did that become your thing? What is that? And kind of walk us through some of the professional highlights that brought you to your work today.
So when I was born, no, just kidding. I have always been in male-dominated industries, always. For some reason, it was attracting me and I was attracted to them and whatever it was. But my real passion came when I hit the insurance world. And I know passion in insurance and exciting, it's not really something that you put together, but it really, really was. I found my calling. And when I was doing insurance, I was the only female, and I would hear what people would say about me. Like they didn't want me there, but I did check a box. And I would hear them say, she's never going to make it, but we could say we had one. And so for me, coming from the Northeast, that was a challenge. And I was also a single mom. So I had a lot of things going on in my head, and I had to make this work. And what I discovered was that the only thing that was important to me was my children and protecting them. And so when I realized that, I also realized that I had the ability and I don't even know what I would call it, but it was my responsibility, more or less, to protect everyone. Anybody that I could talk to, I was going to protect them. And so when I learned to put that protection of my family in the same bucket as protecting others, my career took off. And all of a sudden, the men that were talking behind my back were coming out saying, well, how did you do that? And how did you get there? And why did you say that? And why didn't you say this? And so long story short, that's what happened. I kept getting promoted and on and on and on. I ended up being in the corporate world for a little bit because of that. And it wasn't where I was supposed to be. I needed to be outside of that again. And so I decided, what do I do? Who do I know? And what can I call myself? And I knew I'm female, and I know all about the women that were struggling, and I know all about the women that were doing amazing things. So why don't I talk about women in sales and women in leadership? And then I needed a name. And I didn't want to use Judy Hoberman because I thought, that's not who I am. I mean, it is who I am, but it's not who I am. And so I thought, okay, what did I struggle with? I struggled with, being different than everyone else. I struggled with trying to figure out who I wanted to work with. I struggled with trying to figure out how to invest in people and responsibility and relationships. And I also struggled with my time. Well, just so happens that it's spelled out skirt. So I thought, selling in a skirt. Everybody remembers selling in a skirt. Judy Hoberman, not so much, selling in a skirt. And that's how it happened. And so I decided to go out and become the person that I wish I would have had. And so I started coaching and training and speaking, and that's how it all started. And SKIRT is the acronym for standing out and know your non-negotiables and invest in your relationships and referrals and time management. So it is all of that and all the things that I struggled with. So it kind of made sense to me, and that's what I did.
Now, it's so funny because, at least in my opinion, and you talk to a lot of other folks out there, one of the cliches, maybe it's a cliche for a bad reason, is women are just so much better at sales. They're better listeners. They're better connectors. They're better with empathy. They're better at caring for others and making sure that the other person is, well taken care of. Is that just the cliches? I mean, is that even statement, is that observation sexist in and of itself? Or is some of that true? And is some of that, maybe we could leverage that into how men start to sell?
Well, no, it is very true. But we didn't talk about that until the last, how many years? 3 years, 5 years? We always talked about, get in, get out, and get the check. And I'm going in for the kill. And that's how it was described. Women don't listen to that. If you watch any sales movie, Glengarry Glen Ross or anything like that, those are really, always be closing. And that's not what women listen to, or that's not how they react. And that's not how they work. The problem is the sales training, when a lot of us started out, were created by men for men. It had nothing to do with relationships. men are known to be, and I'm not saying all men, but men are known to be more transactional. Women are more relational. And so when you find a man that is relational, you can hear it in the first sentence because it's not yes, no. It's more like, well, let me tell you how this works. And so they're more relational because they want to bring you into the conversation. You could tell it right off the bat. There are women that are transactional as well. But the truth is that nobody talked about empathy and nurturing and relationships. We just didn't talk about that. And that's why I said when I started becoming successful and people would say to me, well, first they would say, you're such a girl, you take too much time, you ask too many questions, everyone has to be your friend. I kept hearing the word relationships because that's what I did. Well, when I would do that, and they would say, well, how did you do that? I said, I'm building relationships. They went, well, why do you want to do that? And that's how it started. So yes, it is true. No, it's not really a cliche, but a lot of women don't believe it either. That's one of the big problems because sales are sales, and sales, you just remember slimy, salesy, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be that. But to me, I've been in sales for, I don't know, decades, and decades, and you could keep adding them on. I've never sold a thing, ever. Ever, because all I've ever done is I've had conversations. That's it. When you take the word sales, when people say, what's your biggest secret about sales? I'm like, stop selling. Just stop selling. Have a conversation with people. I mean, you know that. It's the easiest thing to do if you do it the right way.
Walk us through the SCIRT methodology. Just give us maybe 30 to 60 seconds on each of the key pillars, and then let's talk about how to apply that and how to really rewire your sales brain. That's really what it's about, right? Because things that people think are important, once you overlay the SCIRT methodology, not important at all. Some things that they completely overlook and ignore are vitally important to their success. So walk us through the specific pillars.
Okay, so first and foremost, you know that the sales process is the sales process. You have to know your product. You have to know how it's delivered. You have to know all of that stuff. So I'm going to take that and move it to the left because you need to know that. That has nothing to do with what we talk about because we're not that person. Did I ever do product training? Of course. That's not what this is. So the S is for standing out. You're standing out in a sea of sameness. There's so many people that are either in insurance or real estate or whatever you can talk about. How do you make yourself different? What makes you unique? Why does somebody raise their hand and say, I want to work with David because he's awesome? So it's that kind of stuff that you have to figure out. Like I always tell people, ask somebody to describe you and then listen to that. Is that you? Because that's how you're showing up. So you have to see how you show up every single day and how you stand out from everybody else. So that's the S. The K is know your non-negotiables. What are your deal breakers and your deal makers? So, sometimes you won't work with a company that does this or participates in that. And you have to know right from the top, I don't want to do that. Somebody offered me a position one day and they said, we want you to do all this training for us. And it's going to be lots of dollars, but you can't talk about selling in a skirt for a year. I'm like, no, that won't work for me. Was the money great? Yeah, but it's not all about the money. So if I went for the money, I would have lost my company. So know your non-negotiables. What are you willing to do? And what's the cost of that? And what are you willing not to do? And what's the cost of that? The I is invest in your relationships. Like I said before, if you don't take care of the people around you and know who your relationships are, how to build those long-term relationships, not the get in, get out and get the check, then how do you count on these people to do business with you? It takes a lot more dollars to cultivate a new client than it does to work with one that's already existing, the one that already said yes to you the first time. So invest in them, not saying don't get anybody new, but don't forget those people that said yes originally. The R is referrals. It's all about referrals. Okay, what's the best way for you to expand your business? It's with referrals. How do you get referrals? Go back to the I and invest in your relationships. But here's the big deal about referrals. Most people don't ask. They're just waiting for somebody to say, oh, I have so many people you should be talking to. And that does happen, but you really have to learn how to ask for it. I never ask for a referral. I would say, who should I be talking to? It's the same thing, but just different. And then the T is time structure. Something we all, male, female, young, old, doesn't matter who you are, everybody has a challenge with. And this year, even more so, because now you have all the added attractions of somebody else being in your house with you all the time, having to homeschool or whatever it is that you have to do. What are your boundaries and what are you willing to do? And what are your priorities? So that's really what the SCIRT philosophy is. And most people have at least one of those. Most people have most of them.
Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. Now, this relationship building, connection building thing.
Yeah.
There are people who are great at it, but here's the but, they are networking and building connections in the wrong places with the wrong people at the wrong level. And I'm sure your clients come to you and say, Judy, I just had this fantastic networking meeting. There was 30 women in the room. And you dig a little bit deeper and like none of them are buyers. And they're all, half of them are, whatever, not a good fit.
Right.
And you're like, well, I think you're in the wrong room because you're talking to the wrong kind of people. So then you say, okay, well, here's the right group. Here's the elite group. And then all of a sudden imposter syndrome kicks in, right?
Right.
Oh, Judy, they would never take me in that group. I wouldn't know what to say. I wouldn't even know how to get in. Blah, 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 blah. Talk about fishing in the wrong ponds for the wrong reasons and how to get over some of that imposter syndrome. So we stop wasting our time building relationships with people who are, I'm sure, are fantastic human beings, but not your target market and not your economic buyer.
Right. And so I did that. I absolutely positively did that when I started my company. I live in Dallas. I knew no one in Dallas at all except the company I just resigned from. You cannot network with those people. They're not your people. And so I networked everywhere, just exactly what you just said, everywhere. I had no business. People would say, oh my God, you're so much fun. I love you so much. No business. Nobody spent any money. Nobody wanted to do anything. They just told me how awesome I was. That's it. And so I tried to realize like I wasn't in the right place. So again, I sat myself down and I thought, I have to be more intentional. There's the word. I have to be more intentional about where I'm going and who I'm doing it with and where I'm spending my time. We don't have, unlimited amount of time. So I had to figure out the very first thing that anybody will tell you is you have to know who your market is. And here's the problem. If I said to you, my market are women who are in corporate, let's say, okay, that means that what somebody else hears is I'm eliminating everyone else in the world. Just I'm going to go with this little tiny group. Or my market are moms with triplets with red hair. Okay. So I have a very defined market, but I can't talk to anybody else. That's what you think. No, what being intentional means is know who your market is. Let everybody know who your market is. So when people refer people to you, they're the right market. When you ask somebody to refer, you give them who you're looking for. Everything's very intentional. So let's say here's the mom with the triplets with red hair. And here's a man who has gray hair that comes over to you and says, oh, I need what you have. Help them. You can absolutely help them. Nobody's saying you only have to stick here, but you have to be the expert in this space. That's what the standing out is. You should know everybody about your market. If you're working with veterans, if you're working with retirees, anticipate the objections they're going to have because they'll have them. And you give them that first. You talk about, here's some of the reasons why, blah, 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 blah. Give them the objections without them being an objection. Have that in part of your conversation, but be able to identify who you want to be in front of. And then LinkedIn or any of the meetups, you put that word in and guess what? It appears. And there's a group, there's an association everywhere. And that's what I did when it first was just women in anything. And then I decided, well, I don't really know about this and I really don't want to be here, but I want to be here. And so I'm in my space. And it's much easier when you're in your space, when there are people that are there that say, oh, I could use this. And guess what? My friend who's also in this business could also use you. And so that's where the economics come in.
Yeah, no, I totally love that. I think one of the important things, and I just had this conversation with another friend of mine, even at a very advanced stage of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I want to open up what I do. And he said, well, now, David, hang on. So who are the folks you work with? I said, speakers, consultants, experts, thought leaders. How many of them are there? I said, you mean like in the world or in the US? He says, I don't care. Give me a number. I said, 200,000. And he says, how many clients over the last 18 years, how many clients have you had for anything? Small, medium, large, or super size? I said, well, about 1,800 customer list. So he says, okay, you've conquered 1% of your target market. The other 99% have either never worked with you or don't even know your name. but you're
Right.
ready to throw in the towel on these people. And I was like, damn, I hate when people are smart like that. So I love what you said, Judy. It needs to be a finite, identifiable
Right.
group of people. I love your metric. Like, can you go on LinkedIn? Can you type in a search term? Do they all show up? Yes. If
Yeah.
you can't, if you don't know where they hang out online, you don't know what blogs, portals, communities they go to, you don't know what publications they read, you don't know what online and offline events they attend, you don't know who else has clients like them, you haven't done your homework yet.
Exactly. And then there's the other piece of that also. You also should have strategic partners. These are people that are already in your space collecting money from your people, but they don't compete with you. They complement you. And so those are the people that you can say, this is who I'm looking for. There's two kinds of people that I can't help. One person is when I say, how do I support you? Who's your market? And they say, everyone, everyone. Everyone needs what I have. Nobody needs anything. I mean, you say, well, what about water and oxygen? No, there are people that don't need that. So that's the first thing. The second one is when they say, I only work with companies that have over 50 employees and are making $600 billion. And my response always is, I don't have their HR records and I don't have their bank accounts. Do you want to try again? Because what am I supposed to do? How do I know that? I might know a company that is doing really well, but how would I know it's $600 billion? So
Yeah.
I'd say, can you bring it down a little bit? But here's the same thing. I bet every one of your clients, every one of them, there is a common thread that's running through them. And that's what I always tell people. Look at your best clients. There's a common thread. It could be, the industry they're in. It could be where they grew up. It could be the school they went to. It could be that, there's a certain language. It could be anything, but there's a certain thread. It could be that they were all teachers. Well, if you do really well with them, why wouldn't you go back there? It's like the 80-20 rule. We always say, well, 20% of your business, 20% of your clients do 80% of your business. What about the other 80% that you don't even play with? You think that if you went back to them and you said, here's something new, or I just want to check in with you, or something, just have some kind of communication, do you think that you might pick up, I don't know, another percent, another 2%, another 10%? Yeah, because people are just sitting there. At the time you asked them, they weren't ready. But something changed. Look at this year. I mean, how many things changed? That's what I'm saying. We have so much in front of us, and yet we don't use our tools. We just don't.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. Let me go back to the referral partnerships and the
Mhm.
allies and advocates. And because you said something really great there, like who else is already working
Yeah.
with the clients that you want to work with? Now, there's two kinds of people who might push back on that, Judy. Type of person number one is Judy. I'm brand new. I'm a total newbie. They don't know me from Adam or Eve. I'm approaching this big name or this bigger name in my industry. What could I possibly have to offer them? That's person number one. Person
Mhm.
number two is probably more likely like the kind of person that you like working with, which is the seasoned salesperson who has never reached out, right? They have a great track record. They have a great, success portfolio, but they're like, oh, yeah, I should start doing that. But I've never done that before. I am literally the best kept secret in my entire industry. How can I start doing this now? So, either for the newbie or the best kept secret person, give us a few words of encouragement about this referral alliance type of networking.
So there's another step that you could take before you become a strategic partner, and that's a walking ambassador. And so, as a walking ambassador, it's like having your own PR firm. There are people that are shouting from the rooftops. There are people that are talking about, do you know David Newman? Do you know David Newman? He did this, he did that. He's so fabulous. He's this. And so, there are people that are on the top of your brain. And I do have those people on my brain a lot. So, when I meet somebody, I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to introduce them because there's a great synergy there. So, people say to me, well, how do I get that? How do I get people to talk about me? The only way is for you to do it for them. Okay, you have to give before you receive. And I know that sounds, totally counterproductive, but here's what happens. So all of a sudden you're getting people calling you, or I'm saying to you, David, do you want to meet this person or whatever? So now you've gotten, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 people that have called you out of nowhere that you're thinking like, how did this happen? And when you go back and look for that common thread, it's me. And you say to me, thank you so much. I can't even believe you're doing this. This is so kind of you. And it's really, nobody really does that for me. Can I do the same for you? Would you be okay with it? That's what happens. Does it happen all the time? No. But all of a sudden, you have all of these little PR people talking about you everywhere. And I mean, I know people do it with me. Somebody said to me, I met another Judy head today. because it was another person that was talking about me. So that's how you start being a walking ambassador. Well, guess what happens there? All of a sudden that your expertise are now known, that you are working with speakers and consultants and so on and so forth, and you're teaching them this and that. And there's one, amazing secret that you're telling them, and that that all of a sudden their business is exploding. And I am saying, David, I am in the same space and I'm talking about sales and you're talking about revenue. What do you think? Do you think we could do something together? Or who do you know? Or can I refer people? That's how it happens. It's not like this whole system that you say, okay, first you get 12 and then you get 10 and then right. No, you have a conversation with people and you have to be able to give. That's what it means to stand out. There's so many different ways to stand out. If I could make a living just connecting people, I would love it. But my mortgage company says to me, we like to get paid. So it doesn't work like that. So instead, I do this because I love watching what happens.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and in a way, you are getting paid. You're getting paid to do the networking, and the sales are just a beautiful byproduct of all of that,
right. And that's true. But look at us. We've been connected a long time. We've never actually really had a great conversation until we were on with Christine.
Right.
Okay. There it is. Christine was the center of this, and we're like, why aren't we talking? Why aren't we? Okay.
Well, and she was also the bragger. She was bragging on, oh, Judy's so awesome. Judy's fantastic. David, you don't know Judy. Oh my gosh, you two have to connect. Judy, you don't know David. Oh, he's also awesome. So she was doing what you're recommending.
There's the walking ambassador and the strategic partner. She became both in one sentence.
I love that. Absolutely right. Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. So no one listening to this should feel, I'm not ready, I'm not worthy, because everyone's ready to help. Everyone's worthy of helping and promoting and being this walking, talking brand ambassador, right?
They just don't know you need the help or you want to meet anybody. Right. They just don't know it. And that's truly the problem. People don't know you're waiting. They don't know, you're looking to meet somebody unless you tell them.
Well, and again, not to make this just the David and Judy show, but it is the Judy and David show. You can look at someone who might be 17 steps ahead in their career from where you are. And you're like, man, that person would be a great partner. That person would be a great center of influence. But that person doesn't need my help. You are completely wrong. They might not need your help, but everyone wants help. Everyone appreciates the help. When you like something, when you share something, when you comment something, when you're like, oh my gosh, Judy, that was an amazing blog. Is it okay if I send that out to my newsletter and link back everyone to your website? Would that be okay?
Right.
Trust me, you will get on Judy's radar. You will get on my radar pretty darn quick if you help us out like that, right?
Absolutely. And there's the challenge is that people are afraid to ask, or people are afraid that somebody's going to say something about them, and whatever it is. You have to remember that people are people. They are. People do the business. The business doesn't do the business. People do the business. And there's so many times where I can remember not wanting to reach out to somebody because I thought they will never want to do anything with me. And I will tell you, I think I was in business probably, I don't know, maybe a year or so, maybe 2 years. And I was going to do a telesummit, and I had 25 other women. So it would be 26, like one a week. That's how I calculated it in my brain. And we were going to do this telesummit. And really, I had the list of women that I wanted. I had the invitation on already set out. And right before I sent it, I said to my husband, I'm not doing it. He said, why are you not doing it? I said, I'm not famous enough. I'm not big enough. I have this, and I'm not tall enough. And he's like, what do you mean you're not tall enough? I'm like, I don't know. It was just, I wasn't enough of anything. And he said to me, do you know who you are? I said, yeah, I do. He said, you are like a magnet. People want to do business with you. They want to be around. He went through all the things that you want to hear. And I said, whatever. I said, I'm going to give it till 6 o'clock. If I choose not to do it, the only two people in the world that know about this are you and I. And that's the end of it. So at 1 minute to 6, I hit send and I turned off my computer. Not the sound. I turned it all off because I didn't want to get 25. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm too busy. Blah, 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 blah. The next morning, 12 hours later, I opened up my computer and 24 of the 25 were saying, what can I do? How do I support you? I'm so impressed. I'm so this, and I'm honored. And da, da, da. And the other one came in a few hours later because she was on another continent. Okay. I remember this because every time I want to do something and I think, should I ask? I don't know. I just go back to the thinking, like, why not? So here's the deal. Everybody says, what's the worst that can happen? Right? What's the worst that can happen? Here's the second part of it. What's the best that can happen? Forget what the worst is. You already know what the worst is. What's the best that can happen? They say yes. That's the best that can happen. And if they do, they're your people. If they don't, they're not. Remember, standing out, you have to make sure you stand out. You're not going to stand out for everybody.
So good. Oh my goodness. Amen times 10. I want to go back to just the gender difference for a moment because you have a fantastic trademarked phrase that you talk about in your training and your books. Women want to be treated equally, not identically. So talk to us about that. And this also, I guess this would be not only women in sales, but women as prospects, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
talk about how that works about equally, not identically.
If you think about it, there are lots of opportunities out there. And many times women are not invited to the table. Okay. It's better, but it's not where it should be. Okay. Let's just say that it's better, but not where it should be. And so there's a lot of times that the opportunities are not even, women are not even said, we'll think about it or whatever. They go right over here and they pick out all the men who are qualified. But there's a lot of women that are qualified. So my thought was, what if you just treated us all equally as one of all the qualified candidates, not identically, because we're not, and just give us the opportunity, open the door for us, do something that's going to give you or give us the opening and let us ride with it. Okay. I talk about the men that encourage women, the men that champion women, the men that advocate for women, the men that sponsor women. Women can't do it alone. Men can't do it alone. So why not? Why don't we just open it up and just treat everybody on an equal playing field, but not identically? Because even women are not identical. Even men are not identical. And that's really what it is. And it's a tiny little sentence and people say it and they go, oh, wait. Wow, that's powerful because it truly is. Just give us the opportunity. That's all it is. Now, with that said, there is a caveat. I'm not saying that a woman should be given a position that she's not qualified for. I would never want to see a man or a woman given something that they can't possibly do and they're going to fail. That is not in my repertoire whatsoever. I'm talking about if there's an opportunity and I'm qualified for it, give me the right of first refusal. Let me say, I don't want this. But growing through the ranks for me, if you said no, you would never ask again. So you had to be really careful with the way you approach things. I'm saying in this day and age, there's so many opportunities out there. Just let us have it.
I want to ask a little bit of a behind the curtain question, kind of peek behind the Judy empire.
Oh.
You have lots of different investable opportunities in your world, which is really, really awesome. So when people go to sellinginaskirt.com, they will see coaching, they will see programs, they will see consulting, they will see books, they will see courses, certification program also.
Yep.
People can become Selling in a Skirt certified trainers, certified consultants.
Yeah.
How did that business model evolve? What did you tackle first? And when did you know it was time to add another component?
So the very first thing I decided was to start my business. And I had zero, like nothing. And I remember going to a networking event and I decided, like I said before, I decided to be the person that I wish I would have had. So I decided I was going to do speaking, coaching, and training. I have a triangle I work within. If it's outside the triangle, I either have to take something else out or say no. So I'm very strict with that because at one point I wasn't. But anyway, so I'm at this networking event and I'm talking to this woman and she said, so what do you do? And I told her and I said, it's all about women in sales and leadership. And I was so excited. And this woman walks up to me and she said, I'm not sure what it is that you do, but you're so excited. And I told her and she said, do you have a website? And I said, we're working on it right now. And she said, okay. And I had a business card. That's all I had. She said, are you going to be speaking any place locally? And I was going to see a friend in Tennessee. I said, well, I'm going to be in Knoxville this weekend. She goes, honey, that is not local. I'm like, okay. So she said, do you have a brochure? And I said, do you want something that's electronic or would you like me to mail you something? She said, I would love for you to mail it because I like to touch and feel. I said, perfect. So then I knew at least I had another day or so. So I run home and I said to my son, who was doing all my tech work at that time, I said, I'm crying. I'm like, oh my God, she wants me to speak for her. And I'm not the middle of them. And he said, Mom, stop for a minute. What was the first thing you said to me? And I said, I don't know. He said, somebody wants you to speak. Isn't that what you're supposed to be doing? And I went, oh, yeah. He goes, so let's put a brochure together. And we did. And that's how it started. So I did speaking, coaching, and training. But then I decided, okay, so that's great. What happens next? So, then we came up with another program. And then, of course, the program would lead into the next speaking engagement, or the program would lead into the certification. So I don't do a million things at one time. It seems like I have a million things that I do, but I'm very careful and I test things out and then I review them and then I readjust them and then I release them. If they're not good, they're gone. And that's what we do all the time. When I do my podcast, and it was a live radio show first, I did a monologue every single time. And my monologue turned into my book, Walking on the Glass Floor. And so, I constantly try to repurpose things and, put things on my blog because some of them I think are really good. And when they're not, I can tell because nobody touches them. And I'm like, okay, move it over. So that's what I do. I listen. People say to me, like, I've done a lot with your sales. What about leadership? That's how Walking on the Glass Floor came, because it was about leadership. So now we can combine them. That's how I do it. I try to
That's
listen
really,
to what people
really
say.
great. So it seems like that your content is a living laboratory of what resonates and what doesn't.
Right. Fix it
And
up.
then you're also masterful at really listening to your
Yeah.
clients and prospects,
Yeah.
listening for what they want next, and then pivoting into that when you get enough demand. Then again, it's a pattern recognition exercise. One person asking for a leadership program, you're not going to go off in some other direction. 25 people asking, Judy, how about leadership? Can you ever do a leadership program? We have a bunch of sales leaders. Can you help that? And you suddenly realize, wait a minute, this puzzle piece is emerging here. People want me to talk about leadership and help them with that as well.
That's really what does happen. And when we started this whole craziness in March, 2/3 of my business was gone, like overnight, which I'm sure you know exactly how that feels. You look at your calendar and everything is canceled. And one of the things I did hear, because my background, like I said, is financial, my exciting financial. A lot of women in financial services said to me, you think maybe you could put together like a panel and talk about what's going on and how we could sell and blah, blah, blah. So I picked 4 women from financial services. And we did a panel. It was going to be this one-time thing. That's all we were doing. And we did 4 different women in different levels. One was actually in sales and one was a CEO. And it was fantastic. And we only did social media posting. We didn't do any paid ads, whatever. And we had, I don't know, maybe 150 people that showed up, which was a lot for, to put it together in 7 days, I guess. And so we did this great thing. And you could tell that everybody started to feel good because what we talked about was where you had to change, how you stayed relevant, in this kind of environment, because we had been like 4 weeks into this craziness. So when I was done, I thought, okay, I'm done. It's great. It was wonderful, one and done, until more than 25 people said to me, when's the next one and who's on the panel? So we ended up doing this for 12 weeks. And then we did a reunion after that. And it was one of the most amazing things. And what people said to me was, you made it seem so intimate and there were hundreds of people on it. And you made us feel like we were all part of this. And so would I like to bottle that? I would, but it's something that was really a labor of love. There was nothing, no money attached to it. Nobody paid for anything. This was 100% free. And more women and more men kept showing up. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, there are things that you do that, maybe you wouldn't have done it that way. Or, one of my business coaches says, you should have monetized that. I'm like, nope, that's not what it was. It really wasn't what it was. Would I do it again differently? I don't know. But for now, 12 weeks was fantastic. And the reunion, we had 98% of all of the speakers show up again, 98% of 48 women from all over the world. Christine was one of them. We had Iceland, we had Germany, we had Spain, we had Bali, we had Costa Rica. They all showed up. And so that's what I'm saying. I mean, there are certain things that you do in your career that you say, these are my people, and they are all either hurting or challenged or whatever, or they just need some connection. And so that's what we did. And so you said 25 people. It was more than 25 people that said, okay, what's next? When are you doing it again? And so it was a lot. But it was awesome. There wasn't one week that I would say, that was crummy.
That's awesome. So it was 12 weekly Facebook Lives in a panel format?
It was Zoom.
It was Zoom. And yes, it was a panel. And at the end, we always left 20 to 30 minutes to open it up to everybody. And people had questions for specific people. And there was one woman that came on every week and her little boy was there. And all he wanted to do was just to wave to everybody. It was really important. And so that's what we did. Everybody waited, where is he? And, everybody would wave. And so, yeah. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, I've got two final questions for you here
Okay.
as we're wrapping up.
Okay.
The final question, because this was so fantastic and so amazing, the final question is going to be, how can people get connected and stay connected to more of your genius? Even before we get to that, though, second to last question, if folks were to take one central idea from our conversation today about selling in a skirt, about this new way of building relationships, about this whole, don't even give to get. What I'm hearing you say, Judy, is give to give, and all the other good things will come from that.
Yeah.
What would be the one core idea that you hope people take from our talk today?
I think the one core idea, which will, encompass a lot of what we talk about, is know your people. Know your people. Because here's the deal. When you are in sales, you have to know your clients, right? When you are a speaker or a coach or a trainer, you have to know who your circles are. You have to know your people all the way around, know what they need, ask them questions, listen, and listen in their own words. Always ask someone if you could take notes. And when they say yes, because who's going to say no? And if they said no, okay, whatever. But when they say yes, listen to what they say and write it down in their own words. Because when you are able to go back and say, so David, what you told me, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, how did she remember? Because there's things that someone's going to say to you that you will miss if you're thinking about the next question you're going to ask. So know your people, listen to your people. They're going to tell you everything you need to know to be successful, but you have to ask. You have to listen. You just have to know them. So I would say know your people is probably the biggest one.
Huge, huge advice. Well, Judy Hoberman, how do people get connected and stay connected to more Judy brilliance? Where can we send people? What can they get from you?
So first and foremost, I am all over social media, and most of it's selling in a skirt, except for LinkedIn. It's Judy Hoberman. And so connect with me. I post every single day before 7 a.m. Central Time. I usually make you think or make you feel good, or just ask a question. So I'm always out there. My website is Selling in a Skirt or Walking on the Glass Floor, either one, and you can get to either one from the other one. I have books, I have tons of videos and audios that you can download. If you want a special present, it would be an ebook. It's called Skirting the Issues, and it's www.sellinginaskirt.com/special-offer. So it's sellinginaskirt.com/special-offer. And it's skirting the issues. It's about women in sales. It's about men, how men will champion women. So it's pretty awesome.
Tremendous, tremendous, tremendous. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We could obviously talk for hours. We have to have you back at some point soon.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing your brilliance with us.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.